All right, guys, welcome back to the live stream tonight. We are continuing on the floor install, and the scope's kind of spreading because we are moving into electrical, but it has to do completely with the floor because it's going in the floor. We talked about why it's going in the floor in the last live stream, having to do with our adventure wagon, insulation, our bump out panels, stuff like that. Kind of a few places to put the wires. So right here, we're going up this pillar where the door is because there is an adventure wagon panel that allows us to house all those cables that we need there. However, the thicker cables that are down here in the bottom, these are the ones that are going to be the 120 volt household power that's going to be running the induction, the microwave add-on if somebody wants to do that. We have the space and the area for that, or that space can be dedicated to the portable toilet. It's kind of like a flex space, so whatever you want to put in there, it's going to have a plug so you can do it. Now, it may look strange that we're using this heavy-duty extension cable essentially, but I really like it. The reason I like it is for a couple of reasons. One, it's 12 gauge, so it is slightly oversized, which makes it very safe. We're going to talk about some specs on this in just a second. We're going to go on the computer. Actually, I have them right here, but we'll repeat them here in a second. So this heavy-duty cable is 12 gauge, so that's a big deal. So it's rated for 15 amps, 125 volts, and 1,875 watts. So 1875. So we're going to remember that number, 1875, when we get on the computer, because if you look up induction stoves, if you look up microwaves, and if you look up water heaters, we have high watt usage on those components. So you don't want to use a cable that is not sized appropriately. You want to be safe. Another reason that's nice is you're probably doing short runs with this, hopefully. So this one is 15 feet, which is just perfect. It can allow us to go to our 15 amp breaker. But the last thing that I love about these is they have a built-in light. So there's an indicator light built in the plug. And this really helps out with troubleshooting. So if you can imagine you're in a van and say you don't know that you tripped the breaker and you're trying to troubleshoot what's going on. You come into the water heater and you look at the cable, the light's off, so that you know to go and check the breaker. Now, yes, you should check the breaker first, but if you pop the breaker back on and you come back over the cable and the light's still off, you know you have a different problem. So what's nice is there's an indicator light that lets you know that there is power, that this wire is live. And I think that's a good feature. So we have one cable for the hot water heater, and this one is going to be kind of double duty. We can use it if we put the induction stove in, or we can use it if there was a microwave that's put in as well. So this was going to go through the floor. The next thing we're doing is we have two other wires that we talked about in a past stream, and that is this one. So this is your more traditional cable. So this is 12 gauge as well, but it is a 12-3 wire. It's the same thing, but it's essentially like a flat wire. I'll show you this one. This is from West Marine. It's Anchor Marine wire. This one is going to be dedicated for the 120 volt outlets. So this is more of your standard wiring for an outlet. So we're going to use this for the outlet that's down here in this footwell, as well as the outlet that's going on top of the table. So we're going to pretty much cable manage these. We talked about these before, but we're going to cable manage them tonight. So that's going to be the live stream. We're really not going to do anything with the floor. We're going to get these cables all run. That way I can go ahead and tomorrow prep the floor panels and do our last couple checks on them. Now, one thing to remember as you're doing this process, I have like these little pieces of tape that I put everywhere, and it's just, I can put notes on them, let me know that that's something I need to go check on. So I got one in the very back to make sure that I finalize the spare tire well. I need to go ahead and handle that because I'm going to cover it with a piece of wood tomorrow, and then we'll never be able to access that again. You could, if you wanted to, you could drill a hole in it and re-access it, but because we have oversized tires on this vehicle, there's no way that you can fit a spare tire under the vehicle of the size that we've upgraded to. All right, so let's talk about this extension wire, because I think it's pretty a little unique. So this is like a little mini electrical safety right here we're going to talk about. Let's see here. I'm going to go to Lowe's. Why would I go anywhere else, right? And let's do 12 gauge extension cord. So we have this Utilitech Pro lighted right here. So this is the one we're using. And right here, this is what you want to make sure. It's UL listed. It's 15 amp rated. So if this is a 12 gauge, we can go to 12 gauge max amps. So how many amps can 12 gauge take? So it can actually take 20. So I'd like to see this number because the other wire is 20, and we did that on purpose. So the wire is slightly oversized for safety, but the breaker will still trip at 15 amps that we're putting in. Let me show you that. So the breaker we're going to be connecting this to in a future live stream. This is the Blue Sea Systems 15 amp 4-circuit breaker. So these are just like you would have in a house. So when it breaks, it'll pop like that. And what's nice is this is lighted to indicate what's on and off. And then under here, you can have lighted stickers. So you can do outlet 1, outlet 2, microwave, cooktop, stuff like that. Now the back of this looks intimidating, but don't worry, we're going to go over that. So that's the Blue Sea Systems, and it's nice, it's low profile. It's not like those big boxes because, we don't need to have that much 120 volt capacity in here. If you had a standard RV, you might be doing rooftop AC units that are 120 volts, stuff like that. So, all right, so we got 20 amps. That's the cables that we're going to use. Now let's look up our hot water heater. So we have a 4-gallon Bosch hot water heater. So this one, and you see how we have a 1440 element? So when we're looking at this, let's see, I did not, I was trying to get you a side by side here. So when you're doing this DIY, this is the number you want to make sure you're paying attention to. So we have 1875 watts. So that's our max that our cable can safely carry to, or that it's rated for. And then we have one of the items that we're going to be running it off of, which is 1440. So make sure that what you're running is lower than the cable, the power cable taking the power to the device. And that might go without saying, but you know, if you're new to this and you're worried about electrical and you want to be safe, it's good just to hear a double check that, you know, you check this number for the cable, 1875. It's rated for 15 amps. So that is our breaker. That's what the breaker is rated for. And we got up to 125 volts. So this is all perfect. And so we can safely run this hot water heater full bore. Next, let's look at, I'm going to go away from the screen for a second. And next, we're going to go to Amazon and we're going to look up the induction stove. So we're on Amazon and we're looking at induction stoves. So the same wattage rule applies. So for example, see this, I purchased it November. So this is the one that I use. And if we see here, we have 1800 watts. So if we look at our cable, we got 1875. So we're still okay. 1800 watts. Now, there were some questions that have been asked about induction burners. And I know we're on the floor thing, but I'm going to just kind of ad lib here while I'm talking about electrical stuff because I think it's appropriate. 1800 watts, single burner. If we go to induction stove and we type in induction stove dual burner. So if we go into induction stove dual burner, you may say, hey, a dual burner, that sounds cool. Maybe I'll do that. This is, let's see here. So if you look at the power levels, you're only going to get a max of 1800 watts. So read what this says. 8 power level settings from 300 watts to 1800 watts on the left burner, and then 6 power level settings from 300 watts to 1300 watts on the right burner. So here it is. See this right here? Power sharing. So when you buy, if you want to have 2 burner tops, I don't recommend it. But if you want to have 2, just know that you can't create power from thin air. So you're not going to be able to run 2 burners 1800 watts each. So you can't have these, you can't have the left one on high and then the right one on high. If you do, you're not going to get the full power out of them because you can only supply it with so much power. So that might be good to know. But what you can do is, say you want to cook something and then you want to have something on a low power level on the right hand side just to keep it warm. Maybe something you already cooked first, you know, like, I don't know, vegetables or something like that. And then you're cooking the main course over here on the left. You could just run it at 300 and then have the other watts on the other side to, you know, provide the cooking. So it would be, you know, a maximum of something like what, 1500 watts. So just to let you guys know that. So I like the single burner, just in my opinion. It also has to do with your cabinets, your countertop space. Once you have the sink there, maybe a outlet on top of your kitchen galley, and you have induction stove, a space goes up very quickly, or goes away very quickly. All right, and then last but not least, let's go to talk about the microwave really quick. So we're gonna go look up RV microwave. And this is not sponsored by eTrailer or anything like that. I can just get quick information from them. But if you look, you'll notice that the microwaves are usually rated below, or like 1,000 watts and below. So this one's like 900 watts. This one's 950 watts. This is 1,000. This is 900, 900, 1,000, 900, 900, 1,000, 1,000. So do you see what's going on here? So the reason for that is, imagine, now this does not apply for this fan, because this fan has a very robust power system. You could put normal household microwave in there, run that thing at 1,800 watts, no problem. But if you think about, let me talk to the camera here for a second. If you think about, say you're in the van, and I'm just going to act like, I'm in the kitchen here. So we have a 3,000 watt inverter. So that inverter can provide 3,000 watts continuous. Now, yes, it can do a surge of, higher than that for a moment's notice, but you got 300 to work with. So that's kind of like your, that's your max number. So we got 3,000. So if we're making hot water at, let's say, 1,500 watts, then now we only have 1,500 watts left from the inverter to give to our other devices. So that's 1,500 watts. Now, keep in mind, this is only when it's making hot water. Once it's made the hot water, the element turns off, you get that wattage back. But let's say you hop in your van, you're excited, you're ready to cook dinner, you turn on the hot water so you can clean dishes or something, I don't know. You got 1,500 watts, you got 1,500 watts left over. So that 1,500 watts is now going to be divided by the induction cooktop if you decide to use it at the same time. And let's say you have the microwave too. So what some people like to do is, especially in RVs, is they buy a microwave that has a lower wattage. So it's going to take longer to cook the food, but it doesn't put a high demand or a high load on the other components of the van. So let's say, hot water heater's been on for a little bit, so maybe the element is not 1,400 watts, it's now, okay, let me go my first example. 1,500 watts, we got 1,500 to spare. So if we have the microwave on and it's a 900 watt microwave, then for the induction, we're going to have 600 watts left to cook. Now, I actually use mine in the shop here, and that might be enough to kind of get things going. So think about it. The amount of wattage your inverter needs to be in your electrical system is based on the on-demand load of all the components in your van. So if you want your van to kind of act like a house, you're going to have an electrical system that can on demand provide power to all those sources, and then all those sources need to have limits to where they don't take over each other. For example, if we turn on the hot water heater and then we bought a 1,500 watt microwave, we maxed out to 3,000, and now we want to try to cook on our induction stove, it's not going to work out. So when you are wiring your van, make sure you have, one, enough circuits to power those devices. And if you notice, when I talk about my wires and my breaker, everything has its own path. So in a house, if you had 4 breakers, each of those breakers might control multiple outlets. You might have 2 outlets on one breaker, 3 on the other one, one in the bathroom and then another one over here. So you might have like 6 or 7 outlets or 10 on 4 circuits. So that doesn't work in the van because remember, we're limited by the wattage of our inverter. So now if we take and make them all individual, each one is a dedicated run. So when we run a plug to the microwave, the only thing that's plugging into that socket is one microwave cable. When we do a run for our induction, the induction is the only thing in that circuit. When we do our outlets, we're not going to have one outlet and then have multiple one outlet breaker and then have multiple receptacles. We're going to have only one per line. So we'll have two boxes. Now, those two boxes, they might have two receptacles on them. But just remember, it doesn't matter if it has 2, 4, 6, 8, 20. That circuit's only going to provide a fixed amount of current to that device. So it's easy to make these, think of them as individual units rather than like a household circuit where you have maybe multiple things that you can plug into one circuit. But overall, that's going to be limited by your breaker, what your breaker's rated at. So ours is rated at 15 amps. And so if you want to do the math on that, that's the last thing I'll talk about, then we're going to get back in the van. So if we have 15 amps times see if I can pull up this calculator for you guys. All right, so I just randomly pulled this up, no affiliation, I just randomly pulled this up. So we're talking about Ohm's law, and I wish I could get rid of all this, all these advertisements. All right, that's the best I can do. So focus right here in the center. So this is the formula for Ohm's law. So this is how you figure out everything with power. You may know Ohm's law as this triangle. So V equals I times R. So I know we're probably going back to school here, but this is how you figure everything out in the van. So our voltage, let's say we have 120 volts and we have 15 amps. Voltage, amps, voltage, V, amps, A, and hit calculate. Don't worry about ohms, but the power is 1800 watts. It's right there, 1800 watts. So that looks very familiar to this right here. You see, 15 amps, 125 volts, 1875. So I just did 120, but if we go back, and let's just change this to 125. And then let's say calculate. 1875. So what does this extension cord say? 1875. So this rating is pretty much Ohm's law in a nutshell, right there. So for example, what would happen if our breaker was 10 amps? You see our wattage goes down. So your wire and your breaker, these things are what is controlling your power. Now typically, so let's keep this at 15 because that's, we've already bought the breaker. This is what's staying. And now when you hear stuff called voltage drops, depending on the demand, this number can change. So sometimes that inverter may not always be putting out 125. Let's say if it puts out 120. So now we got 1800 watts. but it can go as low as maybe 110 or 115, which that's not good. You want to make sure if you have a very good inverter, it's going to give you a pretty stable voltage. But let's just go down to 115 and see what happens. So you can see if our voltage lowers, then our power also lowers. So you guys can play around with this, but so let's say this is more like household power. So say you have like 110 volts, maybe a 10 amp breaker. You see we got 1100 watts. So making sure that your inverter is putting out, and it's also that it's a pure sine wave inverter. We'll talk about that in a future video. But if it makes good voltage, you've selected 15 amps for your current load, then you're going to get that maximum amount of power. So that was kind of mini course. I know we're kind of drifting off here, but I thought that might be interesting to you guys. If you have more questions or want something more in depth on this, let me know. But this Ohm's law is explaining how this rating is being given to a piece of electrical wire. And anything you put in the fan needs to pass this test before you connect it to your breaker. Let's see here. So for example, let's say let's say we don't know what we're doing, and somebody gave us a 14 gauge wire, and let's see here, 15 amps. I'm gonna do that. You know what? We're gonna save that for later. We're supposed to be putting the floor in. Okay. One more thing I'm going to show you, and then we'll get back to doing the wires. So I needed to enlarge the hole over here in the floor. So right there in the bottom. And because we have thicker wires coming through the hole, so I needed to enlarge it. And one thing that I like to do is you can buy these plastic little furniture pieces. And if you pop it out, it creates this nice shroud that doesn't have a sharp edge. So you can imagine this wood, it's not sharp, but it could kind of like saw on the wire. And this is just like you would have at a desk. I mean, it is the thing you would have on a desk. You know, it has the little cover, the little thing you can depress to, pull the wires through. And you can use it like this. But here's the cap. And then what we're going to do is that floor penetration, once we get the flooring down, we'll clean it up by putting this in here. And then this is where so you see how this gives you a nice professional opening? And this way all those wires you see in the floor will come out through here into the fuse panel. And it'll just look very nice professional finish. So if you want to do that in your van, I highly suggest it. It helps protect your wires, but then also gives you a nice pro appearance. Okay, done with the presentations. Now we're going to get to work cleaning up these wires. And so I've already ran the two wires that we just talked about. So these guys are just kind of hanging out. I need to take a marker and I need to write on these. We need to make sure that we don't disorganize these cables. So this one I'm going to type in induction. So that's induction. And then if you had a label maker, that would be amazing. And this right here is hot water. Now we're going to cut this end off, and we're going to put some wire ferrules on it. We'll talk about that later. And then we will professionally mount that or screw that into the back of the breaker system so it's nice and safe. So we have our hot water, our induction / microwave. This is our flexible cable. We can do different options. We've already ran our positive and negative wire, our 6-gauge wire. This is going to provide 12-volt power to our sub panel that's located underneath the kitchen galley. That sub panel is going to run all of our 12-volt items. We're not running any cable to the battery system here in the back. The reason being is we don't want multiple fuse panels. We want our heavy-duty fuses by the battery, and then we want our more light-duty, something that would be easy access right here underneath our kitchen galley. And the idea is that this back panel right here is going to be able to unbolt, and you can take care of everything you need to do as far as replacing fuses and troubleshooting stuff. And then this back here will be just all of our hardcore, high amperage, the 12-volt AC, the inverter, and then our 2 DC to DC chargers. Okay, next we're going to run some cable for our 2 outlets. So we have 100 feet of 12-3 wire. I'm sorry. Yes, 12-3. I'm thinking of 12-2 because that's what we're going to run for our refrigerator. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me in the chat, throughout this whole entire live stream. So this one we're going to write, right here we're going to write bottom. This is our bottom outlet. And then we're just going to make sure we give ourselves plenty of slack to work with. And we're gently placing it in here. And, this whole process, just nice and easy. Don't put any stress on the wire. Don't force it, kink it, anything like that. And then we're going to go through here. And our power box is going to be located right here. So we just need to give ourselves a little bit more slack so that we can... The slack you want to give yourself, it's not for later. Well, I guess it's for later. The slack you're giving yourself is so that the box is going to go right here, so that's probably where you're going to cut it. The slack is so you can prep the wire, get it into the box, and then put it around. It just makes it easier to install overall. So give yourself an extra, foot. So our box is going to be right here. So I'm going to give us just an extra little bit. Get my pliers. since we already cut our hole out underneath this panel, we're going to start routing our cables through this hole. Because our next step is we're going to be gluing the floor down. So this is the last chance to change anything with these cables. Next wire, we're going to label it. It's going to be our top outlet. The bottom one is for if we want to run our induction cooked up outside, like if you need to run like a little air compressor, like an inflator, or you want to charge something. The pop-up outlet that we're using, that we talked about in the yesterday's live stream, it also has 2 USB ports, so you can charge your phone while you're outside. It has a lot of functionality to it. This one is wire number 2, and this is going to be the we're going to say top box, and this is for the kitchen galley. Let's do countertop. So again, same thing. And then in just a minute, we're going to put some wire loom around these 4 wires and bundle them up so that they're nice and protected. Now this one we want to be a little bit longer than the other one because we're coming up to countertop height. So for this one, we're going to be coming up through the floor. And then we're going to be coming, so we're actually going to get our tape measure out. You don't have to rush this. You take your time. This is very important. So our kitchen galley is 36 inches high. And our distance from the edge, so right here's where this piece of orange A-frame member from the adventure wagon, that is our offset. So our electrical box is going to be mounted, we got, let's just say about 2 inches from there, so really close to that. So we need to make sure that we, a minimum, come up 36 and over 20. So we'll just give us a little bit of extra. Then we're going to come up, hold our foot on it. We got 36. So we got 36 right there. If you want to, you could mark it. Again, just take your time. Then we're gonna go 20. We got 20. And then, so that would be a perfect direct to the box. And since, you know, that's our last circuit to do, I actually don't care about, you know, letting this thing have an additional 20 inches on it. Okay, so you can see with my foot, we're going to come up to the box. We're going to come over inside the kitchen galley. Then we're going to come over one last time to our right. And then we have 20 inches right here to actually, you know, play with, work with, you know, mess up on and wire into our box. So I'm just going to measure it one more time so I can cut it right there. All I gotta do is triple check it. I'll go ahead and pull it through. Okay, we're gonna come up. We've got our first mark and our second mark. It's right there. So this is our first mark, second mark, and then our slack. So we have plenty of room. The box will be right here. So on this one, let's go ahead and label it. Number 2, kitchen, counter. This is number 2. The other one is number 1. This is bottom. Okay. Now, before we glue the flooring tomorrow, we got to make sure we support this area right here. Typical kitchen galleys in vans, there's an area that's not supported under here in the Ford Transit because the step is so big. So we'll need to reinforce that. Okay, we've got our 120 volt circuits all good to go. So next, we're going to talk about something I already ran while we were after the stream yesterday. So I took our 14 gauge 12 volt wire, and right here we have two of them. So these two, we've got one is for the USB outlets that we talked about running. So we have two of the quick charge USB outlets up here in the overhead storage cabinets. That way if you're sleeping at night, say you have a laptop you want to throw in there, let it charge overnight, or you have a cell phone, you know, that's for. The secondary reason we have that USB outlet, it's going to power our detachable, since the overhead storage is detachable, you can take it out if you wanted to. It's part of the Adventure Wagon compatible overhead cabinets from Flatline Vanco. Since they're going to be, you can take them out, then the LED light that's underneath them that I'm installing also needs to be able to be, you know, modular, take it in and go out. So that USB port not only is there for your devices, but it's also to provide power for that light so that the light works. The second wire right here, that is our rear panel. So the rear panel of the van, I'll show it right here. This is what we're actually going to be modifying later to accept the Dometic vent fan. So this is our rear panel. So the front panel, that's bamboo from Adventure Wagon, it has 4 of these Lumicoin lights. And then the rear panel, this one, has 2. So we have a connection, so we need power to run this panel, obviously. These Lumicoin lights are pretty incredible. They're very high end. They have this aluminum machined ring that dissipates the heat because these lights are really cool. So they have, you can hold it down and it goes through different dimming cycles. But then what you can do is you can hold these buttons down and these lights will turn red. So at nighttime you can have all the lights in your van set to red, and it's pretty cool. But this panel right here will be cutting out the hole for the air conditioning system. So now we have our USB outlets in our cabinets taken care of. We have our wires pulled for our, let's see here, our wires pulled for our rear lights. We also yesterday pulled a wire for our front panel. So the front 4 lights are off of this wire. Now our lights are coming down this pillar right here, and then they'll be attached to our thing, our fuse panel. So we have that one. Let's see here. We got this. That's 2. The next thing we're going to do, let's see what we're going to do here. Just thinking in my mind, if I want to, I think we're just going to cable manage this in the floor right now. It doesn't look like we have any questions in the chat. Remember guys, feel free to ask away in the chat. All right, yep, let's go ahead and get our wire loom and get that taken care of. We picked up our electrical tape from from Lowe's. We didn't have that. Now we got it. So this wire loom is going to take us from this very right side over here, and we're going to go to, let's see here, take it to the back right there. Yeah, probably right there. So we'll just start in this back corner, and we'll just make our way over. All right, so this doesn't get out of control. I'm going to go ahead and take the electrical wire, and I'm going to pre-wrap about every 1.5 feet or so on the wire, just so it doesn't go crazy. Because our space is limited. We didn't want to cut too much of the floor around, so we just did a 1 inch by 1 inch space. So we want to gather these wires together so that they are as efficiently bundled as possible. So we're going to have our 2 yellow ones on the bottom and the 2 white ones flat on top. Looks like we're gonna go every foot here. This stuff is 12 gauge. These wires are very chunky. So now that we can just relax, we can pull this away from the wall because we already know we've marked here. You can even take a permanent marker and see right here where this foam is, and just kind of mark the wires. And that way you can now just do this nice and easy. And I'm actually going to sit down and do this. And I actually meant to mark down there to where the outlet is going to be, but it'll be all right. So the idea behind this is kind of the whole like Steve Jobs design, where you're not ever going to see these wires underneath the floor, but we need to make sure that this is done very nice and neat and organized. It's not just stuffed underneath the floor. But by keeping it neat and organized, when we put the wire wrap on it, it's going to be very, very easy. A question might come up is if you want to add to the system, is this something that you could add to? What we're doing right here, no. You'd have to actually add an additional breaker for if you wanted more outlets. So say you wanted an outlet in the back of the van, you would need to add another a 120 volt breaker. But that's the give and take in a van. We're limiting ourselves to 4 circuits because, I mean, really we don't need that at the current moment. The need is not, we don't need that much circuits. They're kind of useless. But if you did say you wanted something, an outlet in the back just for convenience, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so we have the 4 circuit breaker to simplify things. We don't want to have this whole entire system to where there's like multiple expansion. So the reason those plastic boxes on RVs are so huge is because, I mean, you can add, 4 or 6 breakers. You can keep going. But that's more if you wanted to add like a secondary 120 volt AC, or heck, you're on those rigs are plugged up to shore power, so they have unlimited power. Technically, they're pulling off almost like a household box, to where if they actually want to maybe run like a little washing machine, you can do that. But in a van, we want to be limited because we want to stop the complexity somewhere. So simplifying with 4 outlets is plenty. Plus, we don't have enough room for that box in this build. If you guys are on the live stream, it'd be great to ask questions right now, because this is like a meaningless task. So I'm literally taping wires. I would love to be answering questions right now, if you guys had any. Also, I think about doing a poll again. I'm just kind of choosing this time of night to live stream because I think there's a lot of people on the West Coast that are interested in the channel. So I'm trying to do a trying to get the East Coast and the West Coast covered, and this seems to be the best time currently, but that can definitely change. If love to hear suggestions on live streaming time. Okay, so we've got this taken care of. Let's find out where we were stopping over here. We're on the back side now. Here. this loom that I'm on here, you guys can obviously see it's not covering the whole thing. So all I need it to cover is, I'm putting on the whole thing because I have it, but the main thing I wanted to cover is I need to cover the 3/4 side where the shower pan is. That's what I wanted to cover. I just wanted a buffer between the steel shower pan and the cables. So with the current way that I have this ran, the two white cables that we put on here, those are the ones that I'm looking to protect the most. All right, guys, about 15 minutes, we're going to sign off here. So if you have any questions before the live stream ends, let me know. Now would be a great time to ask that before I head off. So you guys can kind of get the gist of what's happening here with the cables. You got these cable managed. And then we are going to pop this right into here and we'll tape this wire so that when we put it into the floor, this thing will be completely protected just like that. And then we'll be able to put the floor right on top of it. So stay tuned for the next live stream. I'm going to handle this all first thing tomorrow. Got to get it all on the floor. There's really no more runs that we're doing in the ceiling. I mean, really, we've got everything. We've got all our communication cables for our panel up here. We've got our USB power. We've got our lighting front and rear power. We're going to run one more cable here. Actually, two more. I just dropped the other one, but that's all right. So we got two more here. One is going to go underneath this one. That is the Webasto. It's going to go on this back side. That is the Webasto communication and power. All right, so Webasto communication and power right there. And then on the top side, we have the last cable, which is our 12-volt power supply for our Renogy hub. So kind of get a chunk of cables here. To go on the floor. All right, yeah, this is going to be that main chunk. We'll take care of that tomorrow morning. And then the good news is our adapter for their RTX 2000 AC unit came in. So we've got all the supplies we need to actually do the AC unit. And, you know, these live streams, it's just me building. You guys get to see everything kind of happen live. But we will be making videos for like dedicated install videos that are not me just kind of talking and, you know, spending time in the van. It'll be step by step. I just like the live streams because it gives you guys an opportunity. If you have time, come in the live stream, chat, you know, ask questions while I'm working. It's a really good way to learn how to build a van, I think. So what else do we have left? Oh, if you noticed, we are repurposing the wheel wells, the plastic ones from Ford. Believe it or not, this is pretty decent insulation on top of here. So we've got it kill matted, and then we have this cover that's going to go over there, and that's what we're going to use. We are so tight for space with the water tank and the hot water that we'll stuff the inside of the water tank with some 3M Thinsulate, but the front part we couldn't build like a insulative structure. So that's as good as we're going to do on the backside. However, on the inside there's a chamber here, and that will be fully insulated. It's just this little curve right here where the taper of the tank comes in. We needed to be right up against that, so that's why we're utilizing this. And they're really good to you know, repurpose and use in your van instead of building a big old box. So we're going to do this, and then we're going to do the same thing over here. Keep it nice and low profile for our power system. And yeah, we will keep on going. So if you guys made it this far in the live stream tonight, I really appreciate it. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Put questions in the comments below. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Share it to anybody who you think needs it. And also, don't forget about the DIY van build cheat sheet. I want to always show that to anybody that is new to the channel. It's a curated list of all the products I buy off of Amazon. It's completely free, comes straight to your inbox. It's a very detailed Excel list of all the components: electrical, fasteners, hardware, kitchen, solar, security, and most importantly, tools. So the tools you see me use live here, they are on this list. This is an ever-growing list. We currently have 255 items. We have a whole page that we're going to be adding very soon, so stay tuned for that, for more links. But the more you see on the channel, the more we'll add on here. Again, if you want to get this free DIY van build cheat sheet, put your name and email address right here. It's going to come straight to your inbox, completely free, and I really think it's going to help you guys out. Thank you so much for watching the live stream tonight, and we'll see you on the next one.